We'd like to build up now with another presentation that will be shared. This is a dual presentation from individuals from the same organization, but giving us some perspective on African horizons and seizing the opportunity across healthcare, agriculture, and educational facilities in Africa real estate. Please warmly welcome two of our presenters to the stage. James Lewis, who's the head of Middle East and Africa, Knight Frank UAE, together with researcher for Africa at Knight Frank under the UAE, Tilda Mwai. A warm welcome to them, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is James Lewis, and from next year, I'm the partner responsible for Knight Frank's Africa businesses. Our commitment and investment to Africa started in 1965 when we opened our first office outside of the UK in Lagos. Today, our investment continues, especially into our people. So instead of you hearing from me this morning, or this afternoon, I would like to introduce you to my colleague Tilda. This isn't working. Tilda is going to talk us through the landscape of exciting sectors where Knight Frank is continuing to invest and provide diversified real estate services. So without further ado, over to you, Tilda. There we go.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can all see me over here. My name is Tilda Mwai. I'm the researcher for Africa at Knight Frank. And today I'm going to be talking about alternative real estate investments in Africa with a specific focus on healthcare, agriculture, and education. Now, the theme for our conference this year is Africa Re-Inspired, and I want us to do some bit of time travel. So the year is 1989, 30 years ago, and I want us to imagine, for those who were in the continent then, I want us to imagine the education facilities that existed then. I want us to imagine the healthcare facilities that existed then, and the agricultural amenities in terms of food consumed and in terms of the active players in the market then. And then I want us to fast forward that to the year 2049 and also create an imagination. If you didn't exist at all, or if you were not in Africa at that time, don't worry, I believe in your vivid imagination. So the thing about the three sectors that I'm going to speak about is that they have a demographic justification to them. And so we have mapped out the various growth drivers that are going to influence these sectors at the moment and in the coming years. So, okay. So there are a few things that we know about Africa, and by the year 2050, 1 in 4 people in the world will be African, and this population, 60% of those people will be in urban areas. And luckily for us, this has been set to, this is combined, sorry, I'm having a bit of issues with this. But luckily for us, this has been combined with an increase in household income, where by the year 2023, household income in half of Africa's households is expected to grow to $5,000 from just $2,000 at the moment. And we have continued seeing an increased growth in terms of the digital economy in Africa, in terms of the value and jobs created, and this is expected to grow as a means of Africa leapfrogging its existing infrastructure deficit. And so we have continued seeing increased financial flows in the continent with increased focus on trade and infrastructure. Now, Prof spoke a lot about foreign direct investments in the continent. So in a bid to avoid repetition, allow me to skip over this particular slide because I think he summarized it quite well. Now, what does all this mean for the alternative real estate sectors with a focus on healthcare? So in terms of healthcare, Africa currently shoulders 24% of the global disease burden, yet we only receive less than 1% of the global health expenditure. And at the moment, the private sector has been very instrumental in terms of investing in healthcare, where we have 50% investments being by the private sector. Yet, we still have an existing financing gap of $66 billion per annum. And so there has been tremendous initiatives in terms of in terms of improving the healthcare space in the continent. And of interest to us at a continental level is the Abuja Declaration, where African states sought to commit 15% of their expenditure to healthcare. Now, in terms of the specific countries, we have had increased focus in terms of the investment acts and in terms of investment policies to help grow the business in these sectors. Of interest, though, is Nigeria, that has a specific policy on public-private partnerships in healthcare. So what we did is to highlight the various trends that we are seeing in healthcare as a means to ensure access and quality in the space. And for Egypt, we have seen continued increase in terms of medical tourists with a focus on the affordable specialist care provided. An interesting fact about Egypt is its plastic surgery space, where it costs £20,000 to have a tummy tuck in Egypt, which is a third less what it costs in other spaces. So that has been a leading space. We have also seen Seychelles continue to define itself in terms of the luxury space, and we have the luxury medical tourism in terms of concepts such as the holiday dialysis coming up. An interesting fact about Seychelles is also the increased prevalence of lifestyle diseases in the country. So Nigeria, however, is on this other end of the spectrum with an increased focus in non-communicable diseases, whereas we still have communicable diseases existing. So we have a double disease burden. Nigerian authorities estimate that the country loses $1 billion per annum in terms of medical tourism. And an interesting trend that we have also seen in real estate is the combination of retail and health, where on one end you have developers who are seeking to have occupiers and anchor and tenants for their shopping malls, and then on the other end you have healthcare providers who are seeking to ensure accessibility to healthcare for their customers. So we have a emergence of the two in terms of retail and health, and we have seen Nairobi leading in this, where we have the MP Shah Hospital in Village Market, and we have Nairobi Hospital in Roslyn Riviera Mall. Now, for those of you who have watched the Black Panther movie, you know of the tiny country of Wakanda that combines the cutting-edge technology and traditional medicine to provide very quality healthcare. And so Rwanda has continued to adopt this model. We have continued to see cutting-edge technology in Rwanda in terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of drones delivering blood, and in terms of a decentralized medical system. They have also industrialized their herbal medicine space up to a tune of $600 million. So what we have attempted to do is size this market for you. And currently, at existing country ratios, we have a bed space deficit in all these countries that we have highlighted, in all African countries, really, but we have highlighted a few cases for purposes of this discussion. So in Nigeria, for example, picking Nigeria as a case study, we have an existing bed space deficit of up to $870 million at the moment. Now, this is at the current ratio in terms of the country. This is in terms of the current country ratios. So what happens when we consider it with a focus on the global ratios? So this the deficit grows from $870 million to $82.5 billion at the moment. So which is a huge growth, really. And so who is investing in healthcare? Who have been the various actors in the healthcare space? So we continue to have investment funds coming into the space, and Of interest is Actis, which has acquired the Abraj Health, which is now taking over the Abraj Health Fund that is focused on developing countries with a focus on Africa, India, and Pakistan. We have also seen non-governmental organizations coming into play. We have also seen private companies and a focus on multilateral and bilateral institutions all coming. An interesting point to note is that there has been a lot of synergies in these players, in that they do not act alone, but rather act together in order to deliver healthcare in Africa. So, moving on to agriculture, we all like food, and the agriculture statistics in Africa are looking a bit promising. We have population growth, which is expected to grow to 2 billion people by the year 2050. And so the food and beverage industry is estimated to grow to $1 trillion in the year 2030 from just around 300 million US dollars in the year 2010, which is a tremendous growth, really. And at the moment, Africa has the capacity to feed the world because we have 65% of the world's uncultivated arable land at the moment. And so historically, we have continued seeing transactions in this space in sectors in terms of agriculture. And so we have Ethiopia, DRC, and Gabon have continued to lead this space. But of interest, I'd like to focus on Liberia, which at just 100,000 kilometers squared currently has 1.3 million hectares in terms of land transactions between the year 2001 to present. So there has been a lot of activity in this space. And we have also seen continued commitment in terms of policy development, and focusing on the continental-wide level is the Maputo and Malabo Declaration, where is the Maputo Declaration and the Malabo Declaration. They're separate declarations, but where African countries focused on committing 10% of their GDP, of their expenditure on agriculture, and also committing to end hunger by the year 2025. So the thing about agriculture and agribusiness is that the future of agribusiness is focused on technology transfers, and we have continued to see initiatives in various countries in terms of dealing with current challenges that plague the agricultural sector at the moment in Africa. So for example, we have Nigeria, where they have adopted the online agricultural retail. We have a case study of Cellulant through its Agricole system, where it seeks to connect farmers and marketplaces, and also provide an enhanced financial system and cut out the challenge of middlemen. And there has also been an initiative by the Nigerian government through its e-wallet system to provide inputs to farmers directly. We have also seen South Africa with its agricultural parks commitment and growth to ensure an end-to-end value chain sort of process, and to also ensure that there's value addition in the agricultural sector. Zambia has set itself apart as an agricultural haven through its ease of doing business, and we have continued seeing a lot of innovation and a lot of policy friendliness in this agricultural space. At the moment, tax rates in Zambia for agribusiness are at 10% as compared to other sectors. Now, the issue of healthy eating and wellness has continued to be a conversation in the world. And at the moment, Uganda follows India in terms of being the leading organic food producers in the world. And organic farmers continue to earn higher yields compared to conventional farmers. And so this is a trend. This has been an interesting trend to note. An interesting fact is also the climate change conversation that continues to rock the the world really, and we have seen adoption of climate-smart agriculture. And in the Western zone, in West Africa, this has been a model that has been adopted. Of interest is Burkina Faso, where they have climate-smart village models and implementing this in agriculture. So a majority of you in this room have at least $1 million US. And so what can that buy you? In terms of, it can buy you a lot of things really, but in terms of agriculture, it can buy you 148 hectares in Zambia, or 143 hectares in Uganda, which I just highlighted as a leading organic food producer, as compared to just 32 hectares in the UK. So really, this is the future of agribusiness in the continent. So there have been increased players in the agricultural sector. From my graph over there, you can see that private companies continue to be very dominant in this space. But of interest is the state-owned companies that continue to come into the continent. And we have seen the Middle East coming in to invest in agribusiness in Africa in a way to also deal with the food security on their side. And so, moving on to education, there are a lot of things that have been said about Africa and the potential growth that Africa is capable of unlocking in the near future. But grey infrastructure, I believe, is the most critical infrastructure towards this end. And so in terms of education, at the moment, by the year 2050, we will have 1 billion young people in the continent. And at the moment, the current level of unenrollment is currently at 30 million unenrolled students, and we have an existing financing gap of 39 billion US. In terms of policies, there have been a lot of policy to encourage investments in various countries, and so of interest is at a continental-wide level is the Nairobi Declaration on Inclusive Education for All and Accessible Education for All in the continent. And so there are various investment drivers in this space. I think if you all look at your various social media pages and any news outlet, you will continue seeing the debate on the future of work and the skill set debate and the need for an innovative skill set and suitable to the industry. And this is a discussion that has continued to be heard in the African space. So for example, Kenya, we have an overhaul of the curriculum in the country from the 844 system to the competency-based curriculum at the moment. And in terms of Ethiopia, Ethiopia currently has the highest number of young people in the continent at 60% of the total population. So there's a huge need to develop the demographic dividend and also ensure the value and utility of education in the country. Morocco continues to have among the highest number of outbound students to other countries in terms of focusing on growing their skill set. So there's a need to ensure value and utility of education in that country. Zimbabwe, I think this is mainly for Kura. We have highlighted Zimbabwe as having one of the highest literacy levels in the continent, second from Mauritius. And so there's an existing need to continue fashioning this skill set to the industry demands. And we have also seen an emerging trend in terms of e-learning and the need for emergence of technology and education provision. Now, what is the opportunity in education and why am I telling you all this? So in terms of population growth, we know that population is set to continue growing. But in terms of the age of school-going children, there is going to be a lot of population growth. As you can see from my graph, in Ethiopia, in the year 2019, we have 40 million young people aged between the age of 5 to 19. By the year 2023, they are going to grow to 44 million people. And and that is going to amount to a square meters demand as illustrated in my graph. Now, what we have done is size the incremental need of demand, and we have done this over a 10-year period, where we're saying for Ethiopia in the next 10 years, we will need 38.1 million square meters to meet the education needs in the country. We are also seeing for countries such as South Africa, we will need 8.5 million square meters to meet the need for education in incremental square meters to meet the need for education in the country. There have been a lot of transactions in the education space, especially over the past 2 years. And so this illustrates the number of disclosed deals that we have seen in the education space. Of interest is the Get Smarter transaction by 2U Inc., which currently is the highest that we have seen in terms of disclosed deals. And that goes to show you the need, the position for e-learning in the continent. And so we talk about Africa because of the regional commonalities that exist, but we are aware of the different contrasts and the need for context in this conversation. So at Knight Frank, we have continued to have leading publications in this space. At the moment, we have the Africa Horizons report, which is available on our website, that focuses on these alternative investments that I have just spoken about. Next year, we're going to have the Africa report that focuses on the city-level themes. And we have, over the past few, in the morning and the past few conversations that we have had, the need for specialization has continued to come up in the discussions that we've had. And so at Knight Frank, in addition to our valuation and the conventional real estate services, we also have the specialist sectors in terms of agriculture, in terms of healthcare, in terms of hospitality and education. So feel free to contact us for more. Thank you very much. I will invite questions. Okay, no questions. Thank you very much.
A shy audience. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, please, for Tilda Mwai.